Hello, everyone. Welcome to our fourth MAES GBM meeting. So we're about to get started. My name is Sebastian Bonilla. I'm the Director of Membership, and I'm a third-year mechanical engineering student. Down below are some of the things I enjoy. I like getting boba, swimming, reading, and then spending time with my friends and family. And then some of my favorite things, boba place, artists, and then my favorite aspect about MAES are the people and the friends we make. I'd like to remind everyone to please sign in at the beginning of each meeting, whether you are a member or not, just for our purposes. So we can put you on our email list and we can send out any opportunities we get and any other information that we receive from engineering companies and scholarships and all that. If you're still not a member, I encourage you to join. You can go to CSULB-MAES.org. You get a dual membership for both SHIP and MAES for only $10. So you'll be able to join both of our organizations and you get opportunities from both. And we help you with professional development, academic achievements, and we provide a lot of opportunities that can be beneficial to you. We'd like to thank everyone who attended our social last Saturday. It was a lot of fun, so please be on the lookout for further socials that are coming up in the future. We do have a scholarship that is starting today. And so the requirements for the scholarship is that you must be a signed up member on our website and have a 2.5 cumulative GPA by the end of this semester. The award is $125 and it will be awarded to 3 of our members. So the way that you can win the scholarship is through a raffle system. So by attending our meetings and signing in, going to our fundraisers and supporting us, and going to any of our events that we host, as long as you check in to each of those things anything that we host will put you down, and that's your ticket into another raffle. So just as I mentioned previously, make sure to sign in at the beginning of the meetings. And then if you ever go to an event, just let whoever's hosting the event officer know so that we can mark you down and you can have another raffle into the scholarship. If you have any questions about the scholarship, you can email info@csulbmaes.org. We do have a Krispy Kreme fundraiser that's going on right now. It started on last week, ending of last week, and it goes until next Friday, I believe that date is, November 6th. It is next Sunday, so in 2 weeks, it's Sunday. And so how you do it is you go on our website right there, you go to more and it's the shop. And so right here on the left, it's the Krispy Kreme fundraiser. And so what it is you pay $10 and you get a digital e-card. And so you get to purchase a dozen of a glazed donuts at any Krispy Kreme location. So if you would like to support us through there, you can do that online. And we are also offering windbreakers on our shop if you're interested in that. So yes, and if you have any questions on that as well, you can always email us at our info@csulbmaes.org. We still do have some open officer positions. And so if you are interested in that, there is a code you can scan right there. We have Director of Outreach for high school, and we have 2 positions open for Director of Recruitment. And last but not least, these are all our social medias. We have just started a Twitter. So if you have a Twitter and would like to follow us, it's at CSULB-MAES. This code right here is for our Discord. You can join us. We have multiple chat rooms available to help you with school, ranting, anything that you would like to just talk, chisme, all that for you. So yeah, if you're interested in joining there, you can find us on LinkedIn as well at Latinos in Engineering and Science MAES. Once again, if you have any questions, you can email us at info@csulbmaes.org. For any questions over anything, membership, the scholarship, fundraiser, if you have any ideas you'd like to give us, we can all be sent. And so I'd like to introduce today's guest speaker, Ivan Figueroa, who will be talking about elevator speeches.
So yeah, I'm Ivan Figueroa. I'm going to be talking to you guys today about elevator speeches. So let me just share my screen here. So yeah, glad to be here talking to you guys. I'd say I definitely can relate to, I think Samantha mentioned the 3-hour class. I went through that before with my grad school, and it was no fun. It was hard keeping awake and alert during a 3-hour class. Luckily, we had a small break, but yeah, it was hard. Um, so with that said, I guess hello again. Ivan Figueroa. I'm going to be talking to you about elevator pitches. And as for myself, I'm part of the MAES LA professional chapter. Incredibly, we do have a professional chapter. Small, we're a very pirate organization out, doing what we can with what little we have, but we're here to help, and I'm doing my part to pass on what knowledge I can. So with that said, what we'll be talking about today, I'll just go a little bit about myself. Uh, we'll talk about the presentation on elevator speeches. And then what I want to do is I want to try out if we can do like a little side session where we can practice theory in a sense, and practice what we will learn here. Just get some of that going, and then we can have a Q&A at the end. Nothing too fixed. Open to answer whatever questions you guys might have. So with that said, about myself, first generation Latino, first, go to college, first to graduate from college. Currently, I'm a space segment engineer at SCIC. And for you that don't know what that is, it's a federal contractor that works with the government on a lot of government contracts. What I specifically do and work on, I am part of the contract that helps the government with the GPS constellation. So for all you who rely on Google Earth to just know where the hell you are, we're definitely playing our part to help the government get that up and running and operating smoothly. But a little bit else regarding myself, I got my master's in astronautical engineering just this past year, 2019, from USC here in LA. But before that, I was an alumni at Long Beach. I graduated with my bachelor's in aerospace engineering here at Cal State Long Beach back in 2015. 5 years, it seems like it was yesterday, really. But always, always be part of my experience. But anyways, so I'm currently the VP for the MAES professional chapter, but during my time at Long Beach, I was actually the director of outreach, interestingly, for you guys who might be thinking about that position. So you're welcome to ask me anything about that, since I did that. And, it was quite a lot of fun, quite a lot of work. Um, all right, so without further ado, we'll get into elevator speeches. And the first thing we might ask, what's an elevator speech? And really, what an elevator speech is it's a short monologue. You're talking usually for about a minute or less, and really, it's an opportunity to present yourself for an idea. And it's really not so much that you're trying to fit everything you can, but you're trying to start something. There's try to start a conversation, trying to pique someone's interest in you or the idea that you're trying to pitch. And it could be very useful in many situations. But that begs the question, why do we necessarily need an elevator pitch? And as a great man once said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And it really comes down to that in a lot of fields, regardless of whether it's engineering or, sciences or business. Unfortunately, we could be, 4.0 GPA students, but, going from being a student to working to having a job, isn't automatic. No one's necessarily guaranteed a job after you graduate. And in order to really, land that job or accumulate those opportunities that, might lead you in that direction. You have to make connections, and sometimes, people can come from very different worlds and might only meet for, one instance, and, you might never see them again. So, may, having your elevator pitch is really essential to be able to maximize the use of that time that you do have when you encounter those opportunities. So it could be yourself, or it could be, like I said, an idea. The elements of a great elevator speech are really, something that presents you in a relevant manner. You don't have much time, so you want to stick to what you want to convey, what you want to sell in that sense, and it has in that aspect a clear goal and objective. You don't want to be dilly-dallying around, and as I mentioned earlier, it's the start of further discussion. You want to pique someone's interest so that they want to come back and talk to you some more about yourself or that idea that you have. Um, um, to really get things going. So how do we necessarily create a elevator pitch? And putting together an elevator pitch, you kind of have to do a little bit of uh, research and answer a couple of questions beforehand. And you really have to ask yourself, what is the goal of the pitch? What is it that you want to get across? Do you want to, find someone that can give you an interview? Do you have an idea that you want to, pitch to your boss, or some concern that you have or whatever? Um, Perhaps it may be, you come across someone that you don't necessarily need something from them at the moment, but you feel like it could be, useful perhaps later, like a coworker who's working on a project that you might find interesting, and maybe down the line you say, oh, maybe I'd like to jump over to that team. Um, but the you have to answer that question. Why are you doing this elevator pitch? For what's the reason behind that? Who is the pitch for? You know, whether it be, just like I said, a coworker, it's upper management. You have to answer, who is it being targeted against? And also, how can that person help in regards to that goal? So sometimes you may come across, situations where, technically, maybe you're talking to someone who's a recruiter for a company, um, but maybe sometimes they don't necessarily have the right connections to guide you where you need to go. So this may be a little bit harder to answer depending on, how much you know of the person, but you kind of want to see if this pitch that you're going to be giving isn't going to lead to a dead end or not really go anywhere. um, but at least have an idea of where is it that this you want to have this conversation go. So really, when it comes down to structuring your pitch, you kind of want to hit a couple of key points, and the first among is, uh, who are you? What do you do? What is it that that makes you stand out, or the thing that you're trying that you're belong to or part of? And what is it then necessarily that you're looking for? What do you want from this? And it's a rough sort of template, but more of, like, again, questions that as you answer, you'll be able to fill in and populate with more detail. So sort of putting these two slides together, structuring your pitch along these lines, kind of gives it a little bit of a continuity, and you can answer the questions that yourself, were asking yourself. Um, who are you? You introduce yourself. What do you do? it really puts, into context all of those details. Like at the beginning, how I was mentioning that I was part of the professional chapter and part of MAES, the director of outreach, that helps put myself into the context of this conversation that we're having now. Um, and most importantly, what is it that you're looking for? You know, if your goal is not necessarily to look for anything, that may be fine. But if you're going up to a recruiter, you should be cognizant of what necessarily you're looking for. It's fine and dandy if you just come and talk to us or other recruiters, but you need more than just to have that connection. You need to show them, hey, this is what I'm looking for. I've done my research. I know what I'm looking for, and this is what it is. And really, and the last point here that I mentioned is how does that listener fit into that goal? This last point here is really to help along that conversation, to try to engage that person you're pitching to. Because sometimes, an elevator pitch, like I mentioned before, it could just simply be a straight monologue, and from there, it either kicks off or doesn't. But sometimes, you want to have it be more of a conversation, and part of having that conversation is, following up with questions and prodding and, asking more to try to get the person you're talking to more engaged and more likely to, follow up on whatever it is that you're pitching or asking for. So I have a little template here in regards to, I guess, a specific situation. In this case, is talking to a recruiter. So it sort of like how we've been discussing before. You mentioned who you are. You mentioned some of the context behind yourself, such as like here. In this case, if you are looking for a specific role or position or whatnot, you would mention details that would be relevant to that. And as I give here on the right a little example about that, I mentioned my major. I mentioned that I'm interested in an entry level position, and I put that there. And I mentioned things like aerospace engineering major to try to put that into context, right? If you're if you're looking for a position as a, aerodynamics engineer, are you necessarily going to tell them that, hey, you were the first one to go to college? Not necessarily, right? It doesn't necessarily contribute um, much to the conversation unless it's something that you could use, to engage with the person further. But at the beginning, if you want to be, say pitching to a recruiter, provide some of those details that are, going to check off all those buzzwords, those parts that are going to be what the recruiter is looking for in terms of potential candidate. Um, so this is just a template that I have here. You're welcome to use this template. I mean, for me, I don't necessarily try to write out my elevator pitches or anything like that. There are upsides and downsides to doing that. But to get you started, it's a good place to start reflecting on this um, and going from there. So as you see here, like I put stuff that's pretty relevant to what I do, and to what necessarily I'm looking for and how they fit into that and how they can um, um, fit what they're looking for with what I'm looking for. What I'm trying to say. Um, okay, so the next slide here, um, about tailoring the pitch, the speech that you have. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes you might present something to different people. It might be a different scenario. Like, for example, just in the name itself, an elevator pitch, maybe the situation is that you're in an elevator and the time you have to talk is, maybe a couple of seconds as, you're going up a floor or two. Um, so it could vary widely in terms of what situations you're presented, opportunities. You kind of have to tailor according to those opportunities. Some of them, are much more structured, like career fairs and so forth. Um, but others may be, somewhat at random or a lot less planned. But for the most part, you tailor your pitch according to whoever you're necessarily targeting, how much time you have, if necessarily you need something to be done now. Like if you're, um, say, if you're pitching at a, I don't know, for like a business case, if you're pitching an idea, it might be that you're pitching this at an investor meeting or something like that, where you might need some decision right then and there. Sometimes it may be if you're, discussing something with a hiring manager or something. Um, it's just something to be aware of when you're thinking about this. Um, yeah, and there's a couple of other examples here of places where you might be using an elevator pitch, and really, it blends itself with, and having an introduction, talking to people, just knowing a little bit of what you're going to say beforehand helps, sort of smooth that conversation into sort of a logical way forward. Um, yeah. I'm guessing people have questions. We can get those to those once we finish up here, but there's not much. I don't have too much here to present. But let's keep going here. Um, so the next area I wanted to hit, I know with the pandemic and everything, um, this might not seem as relevant to begin with, but it does play a big part, especially when you have, your elevator pitch and you're presenting it to someone in person. And the topic here is nonverbal communication. It's something that I, didn't learn necessarily in any of my classes, well, engineering classes. I did take a class on this actually. So that's why I'm presenting it here, but it's something to be cognizant about. And then the first thing I would like to sort of just discuss here is that communication is imperfect. Um, it's made up of verbal and nonverbal elements, and we can get into, there's a whole semester of, you can get into a class regarding the different aspects of nonverbal communication. But some things that you need to at least be mindful of is posture, verbal tone, eye contact, body movements, like moving your hands around, or uh, stuff like that. Even your appearance, it sometimes plays a part in communicating, to someone. It might not be, um, explicit communication. It might, come as indirect. Um, you know, stuff like, what if you have a like a poster in your background, that is communicating some intent, some message. It implies some meaning. So just being aware of those things can go a long way. And this, again, we can go more into this. I don't want to get too much into this. If you want to look more into it, definitely do. I'd say definitely not only useful here in terms of elevator pitches, but also when it comes to interviewing and stuff like that. So just like I mentioned, some nonverbal communication aspects to look out for. It's not having enough eye contact. Um, not, looking at someone when you're talking to them. For different people, it can imply different meanings. Some people might, pass it off as like, okay, this person is shy or whatnot, but for others, it might be a sign of disrespect. And depends on the background of that person, the culture of that person. Like they may, like I said, communication is imperfect, and it may be interpreted differently from what you might have intended. Unconscious tics that you may have, like tapping your feet, scratching your head, things that you don't necessarily, or doing like this when it comes to your glasses or something like that. Things that you kind of just do that you're not necessarily aware of or in the background. um that right there, what I did, doing the and just have being aware of those things presenting helps you be cognizant of how that may be portrayed, especially if you're doing like a presentation like this. But say you're doing a presentation, outside where it involves upper management or whatever, that uh, that may come off as more of showing off that you're anxious or whatnot, and that's something that can either benefit you, or can it can be a handicap when it comes to uh, presenting something, or getting a point across. Low energy and enthusiasm. People want to see someone is excited to be here and to be looking for something, and you want to be able to, convey that you have a passion for what you're doing, and that because again, it's how it's interpreted, and if someone sees that you may not necessarily they don't want to be like all over the place, but if you seem really like it seems like you're annoyed or something to be there, these people are looking for signs that this person or potential candidate might be someone who they can work with. So again, just things to keep in mind. Sometimes too much body movement, and sometimes that, like perspiration. Just little things to keep in mind, to just be aware of what in what message, or what kind of uh, what kind of communication is being conveyed by that. So why do we necessarily care about this? Um, and really, the goal is to be aware of how one is communicating non-verbally. We spend a lot of time, just doing our own thing and not being aware of how that comes across. And, even with people we do know, uh, we usually have become accustomed to, each other's tics and, eccentricities and stuff like that. And might not be aware how that, is perceived by, just a stranger, someone who you might not know, and how they may um, interpret that. So really, and because of that, first impressions are key here, and you don't want to be shooting yourself in the foot if you have your elevator pitch, all practiced and planned and everything, and maybe you show up, you forgot to wear a clean shirt that day, or maybe whoever you're pitching to finds that the tapping that you do with your feet is distracting or something, and that may potentially derail the entire conversation. um yeah, so this is why necessarily it's good to at least be aware of that. Try to make a good first impression. And luckily for us, you don't have to worry too much about a lot of those things when especially if I know one that people keep bringing up is like body odor, like perfume and stuff like that, when going to career fairs and stuff. um so doing stuff virtually helps with that. You still have to be aware of things like eye contact and, energy and how you're posturing and positioned and your hand movements and all that. Um, the key here again is to have a good first impression. So just a couple of points here regarding that, to try to help you along in getting that good impression. You want to make sure you plan ahead. Make sure that you know the main points you want to get across. You want to be mindful of those nonverbal aspects and how they may be perceived by that person. Definitely practice as much as you can. Uh, by now, I've gotten a little bit more used to it. But I know for a lot of you going to, say, career fairs or talking to someone, might be a lot older than you or have a position of power, they may seem pretty intimidating and whatnot. But practice until it becomes, almost um, not necessarily almost secondary, but you become accustomed to it, and it's not something that you're doing, uh, right off, you know, as soon as you get started. And also try to be prepared to follow up if there's any questions or if maybe the conversation isn't going the way you want it to go. It gives a good impression if you pitch something and they might just happen to know something about that and they ask you a question, and if you are informed about that subject, that can come across pretty well, and it can increase the chances that they'll probably follow up in regards to that. Um, so other little tidbits here and there regarding this. First one is really kind of more related to in-person, meetings and stuff like that. Another tidbit here is watching other people, give elevator speeches and finding tons of examples on how to, prep and I guess mentally prepare for something like that. It goes a long way and helps. And for a lot of people, there's different ways of practicing this. I know some people have done the next bullet point there, and they record themselves uh, practicing this kind of stuff, and they play it back and they catch all those little things, like the ums and the little lapses in their speech or whatnot. And so yeah, so definitely try doing what helps, what is useful to you, and putting some effort behind it. Um, Another thing here, energy is contagious, as I mentioned before. Engaging and sharing and really trying to get that person to remember this when they finish the day or they're thinking about potential hiring candidates or whatnot. Make sure you want to be the one that stands out and they remember that. So right now, I guess we can go into questions now. Like I said, I didn't have too much to present here. I wanted to keep it as general as possible, but open it up here to if anyone has any questions at the moment.
Is it okay if we do the breakout room so it could be like interactive? You could like talk to each other, practice, and network as well.
Yeah, if you guys want to do that, definitely do that. The next slide here, I have that. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so as I mentioned, sometimes practice makes perfect, and it's better to practice in a situation where you're amongst your peers than necessarily amongst professionals and other stuff like that. So if it's okay with you guys, what we'd like to do is have a breakout session here, where we'll I guess break ourselves up into groups of a few people, and what I want you guys to do is to try to practice your speech, your pitch, and um, there's really no goal here at the beginning. Like, I want you to just imagine that you're talking to a recruiter at a career fair that may be in your field. So you're welcome to make, details that suit the situation up as you need, but try to get that pitch going. Try to see where you need improvement and stuff like that. So we'll take a couple of minutes here. I put here 10 minutes.
Also, this isn't like just everyone. This is like not intimidating. It's just, like very simple. Like it's just like so you get practice. You can also like talk to each other. That's how you like build connections as well. So it's very beneficial as well. So I will now like be adding people to the rooms.
Yeah, so just one after another and practice, give each other some critique, be candid. I mean, don't be mean or anything, but definitely use the opportunity to just dip your feet in the water and see, I guess, if you have elevator pitch game. All right, so we'll give you guys a couple of minutes here, and we'll get back here, I guess, 10 minutes. So take about a minute or so to go each, and we can get started.
What's it called? Do you guys have like questions for Ivan, by the way?
I would say, like, would you deliver your elevator pitch the same way as if you're talking to someone at a career fair and interview? Or because I kind of feel like the only thing I would think of changing would be like my position or like what I'm interested in. Like I'll say like, hey, like during the interview, I'll say like, hey, I applied to this position because I'm really passionate about this and that, and your company has that position available.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, a lot of the time your elevator pitch is very useful, and sometimes the very first question they'll ask you in an interview, which is, tell me about yourself, which perfect situation to use your elevator pitch. You could tailor it just, to include a little bit more detail or maybe a little bit less detail, depending on what you think might be relevant in that situation. But just, mentioning that, what you're looking for and why you want that position, that definitely helps the recruiter know that, you're either a good fit or not for that position that you're interviewing for. So you could definitely use it in that situation.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I saw a hand.
Okay. I have a question. So after you give your elevator speech to a company, where does the conversation usually flow? Because I can only think of saying it, but then I go blank. Like, okay, I've told you my elevator speech. Are you going to ask me questions or tell me about your company? I'm not sure.
So usually, say except for example, you're at a career fair. If you're at a career fair, you're probably standing in a line with other people. You could use the opportunity to say, would you mind taking a look at the resume that you have? And that could be a logical break for you to maybe catch your breath if you're panicking. But it gives them something to do. You're passing the ball to them, and they can take and look at your resume, and hopefully they'll find something else there that may catch their attention. And say you're at a career fair and they go over your resume and maybe they don't take too long looking at it. You may, in order to try to get more interest from them or engage them further, you could say, would you mind giving me any pointers on how I can fix my resume or improve it or something like that? Like I mentioned, like trying to engage to turn it from the monologue part to the conversation, to really get that conversation kick-started. And sometimes, the conversation might just end after they say, okay, this seems like a good candidate, or a lot of the times that might be the case in career fairs where they might just apply online or something like that. But it never hurts to, to follow up with a question or two afterwards. That really shows someone that you are engaged or interested in whatever, you're trying to sell, which in this case is you. Yeah, so good question.
Thanks.
I know I had a question in one of the rooms from, sorry, I forgot who it was. I think it was, so the question was regarding the elevator pitch. When is it when is it important to include information, like if you have if you've never had like a engineering job or whatnot. And what I mentioned was you could use it as like in your resume, where if you don't necessarily have relevant experience at the moment, you could at that add some experience that conveys what you're trying to get across. In this case, hire me because I am responsible, because I passionate about what I'm doing, and so forth. So you could add volunteering experience. You can add that you're part of an officer, or you're part of MAES, that you were involved in as a counselor or youth counselor or whatever, to try to fill in some of that information to help convey that I'm looking for an internship. I've have experience dealing with people, being part of stuff, being responsible, so forth. Yeah. So the technical stuff definitely helps if you have that in your pitch or your resume. The people skills are important too. Okay. Any other questions? I know we're at 6:05 here.
So I think that's all the questions we have. So we could go ahead and end the meeting. Thank you, Ivan.
What's called, Ivan? Can you leave your email if anyone has like additional questions?
Yeah, I'll type my email down in the chat below. Feel free to send me a email if you have a question or whatnot. I don't know if you guys want the slide or whatnot, the set of slides, or well, you guys have the recording, so I guess you can take a look at that. Yeah, just let me know if there's any questions or anything like that.
Thank you so much, by the way. We appreciate you.
Yeah, no
you.
problem.